Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, the High Guy Jacobs, and today we are starting a deep dive series into all of the armaments currently available in Doomsday: Last Survivor. Just a disclaimer though, we will not be touching on the collaboration armaments for Mai or Marco and Eri, as those armaments are no longer achievable in the game. However, we are starting with the ranged because we can still get Jack Brontes, who is the ranged collaboration hero, in the Pacific Rim event. There are still a couple of days left to get those armaments, so we will go over them and give you an idea what they are, so that if you do want them, you can still get them. Alright, however, before we start our deep dive, I need you all to like the video, comment down below what your main focus is, and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, click the join button, become a member. It's only $6.99 Canadian, which works out to like $4.50 or $5 American. It's pretty cheap, and the best part is it's really a great way to help support the channel. Unfortunately, IGG doesn't pay its content creators anything, and YouTube doesn't pay very much, so it's a situation that basically says I do have to ask the community for some help. If you can, go ahead and click that join button and become a member today. Other than that, let's dive in and look at those armaments and see what is available for the ranged squad. Like I mentioned, armaments are pretty simple. You're going to equip your leader heroes, and I don't mean the heroes that have the leader talent tree. I'm not talking about Victor, and I'm not talking about these ones. I'm talking about the leader of your marches, okay? So for my garrison march, for example, Thunder leads my garrison march. So I'm going to equip Thunder with armaments. I'm not going to equip Thunder's co-leader. I'm not going to put armaments on Riven because she's not bringing her armaments. Only the leader does. Remember this note. Only the leader brings armaments. But you're going to put your armaments on the leader heroes of your marches. Okay? On the actual leaders of your marches. Now, every hero, like we mentioned, can carry 6 armaments and 2 devices. The devices we will go over in their own video because there are a lot to choose from and a lot to focus on. And unfortunately, unless you have them, there's only really one way to look at them, which we will do during the next event. Okay? But again, armaments are simple. That is what's going to happen and directly influence your individual marches. So, vehicles, for example, are going to influence every march. Right? So my workshop, for example, this influences every infantry march that I have, whereas the armaments will only influence the march that they are attached to, so the leader that they're attached to. All right? Now, when we look at those armaments, we've got 6 different ones to choose from. We've got weapons, helmets, vests, backpacks, pants, and shoes. Yes, we've got superbs, which we will also go over and talk about. And also talk about how they relate to the collaboration heroes. This one's going to be a little bit of a longer video for you guys. The first one always is, because there's a little bit more context to lay in here. All right. But first, let's just go over the armaments and take a look at what we're looking at. The first one being Marksman Crossbow. This one's bringing ranged squad lethality and ranged squad attack, whereas the compound crossbow is bringing ranged squad lethality and squad's basic attack damage. So you're going to ask yourself, what's more important? Well, if you've never heard the term diminishing returns, this will be the first educational aspect you'll get into it. That entirely depends on what you have the most of, okay? So here's the thing. When you're dealing damage, there's 3 types of damage. You've got basic attack damage, counter damage, and skill damage. If you increase the attack, that will subsequently increase all 3 of them by a small margin, okay? If you increase just the basic attack damage, this is going to be at a much more concentrated benefit than what your attack will. All right, so attack is going to give my basic attack damage less damage, but it's going to give more to ranged, or it's going to give more to the skill damage and more to the counter damage. However, if I already have, let's say I already have 10%, or let's say I already have plus 50% attack, adding an extra 5% isn't going to be nearly as influential as if I only have, let's say, 5% squad basic attack damage and I'm adding an additional 5%. If I'm doubling that squad's basic attack damage, the increased percentage is worth more than simply stacking on more attack. So it really depends on what the mix is. That's why there's so much context and layering to this game. There's no real answer on which stat is better because they all kind of play their part. So you need to be aware of what your stats are. And just to give you a bit of a tip here, if you want to look at what your stats look like on your hero, on their line, what attributes they have, you click up here on the armament section and you click on this 3 dots right here. This is going to open up all of the attributes that you're getting from your armaments. And this is going to give you a better idea on what you're missing, what you need more of, and how you need to balance it. Okay? Now, going back to armaments, going back to the 2 that we're looking at here, into here, we've got the marksman crossbow or we've got the compound crossbow, both of which providing attack entirely depending on what you need. All right? So just now that you understand that a little bit more, use with caution. Now, if we look at helmets for the ranged, you're going to be looking at the Windtrekker hood, which is providing squad block and squad defense. Whereas the Falcon windproof cap is providing squad block and counter damage taken reduced. Okay? Now, this is where I'm going to be a little bit, you could say dumb, you could say uneducated, you could say maybe a little ignorant or arrogant. No, ignorant's the right word. But correct me if I'm wrong. You don't take counter damage very often. As an individual line, there's only really ever one source of counter damage. Right? If I'm a multi-rally garrison, I'm going to be dealing a lot of counter damage. But if I'm a single target, there's only one source of counter damage that I'm taking at a time. So it seems to me, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you can go ahead and blast me in the comments, but it seems like in this situation, squad block with squad defense is going to be better than squad block with a reduction in counter damage taken. Unless you're up against a Raigaro Riven specifically, where they've got tons of counter damage, and that's where you're feeling it the most. But in my opinion, chances are your defense, where you're going to be able to have more of an influence on all 3 damage types, versus just one specific damage type. Okay? But that's just my opinion. I could be ignorant. I could be missing something, so if I am, please let me know. Next, we're going to look at vests. For this one, we've got the camo ghillie suit providing squad block and squad defense. Range squad block and range squad defense, pardon me. Don't get it confused. And then we've got the stealth ghillie suit providing range squad block and a reduction of basic attack damage taken. Okay, so this one might be more beneficial because obviously as a defensive individual, you're going to be receiving more basic attack damage. So everyone that attacks you is going to be hitting you with basic attack damage. So this is going to be more influential in that sense. Compared to the head where you're, the helmet, pardon me, where you're only getting counter damage taken. So again, depending on what you need more, if you've already got a ton of defense, maybe getting that reduction in basic attack damage might be better. It also depends on who you're up against. If you're up against a Chasey, for example, you might want to have this one on there to help limit as much of that 330% bonus that she gets. Or 400, I think, when she's awakened. Okay. Next, we're going to look at backpacks for ranged. You've got the travel bag providing squad counter damage, overall squad counter damage, and ranged squad attack. Or you've got the canvas quiver providing overall squad damage and squad defense, depending on what you need. So, squad counter damage and ranged squad attack, or squad counter damage and ranged squad defense. Totally up to you, depending on what you need, what you're going to be most influential with. Now, if I were you, if I'm a range main, chances are I'm going to be stacking attack as much as I can because you really want to deal as much damage as you can. That's what range do. If I'm infantry, I'm going to be stacking as much defense as I can because I want them to be as tanky as possible. If I'm riders, I'm probably going with a mixture of both because obviously I want them to be a little bit of both. That's kind of what they do the best, right? So you kind of want to have a nice balance that way. Now, we will talk Hones again here in a little bit when we talk about what's better, block or lethality, and attack and defense. We'll get through that whole conversation as well, but let's finish going through the armaments first. If we look at the pants, we're looking at leggings providing range squad lethality and range squad attack, and the pocket pants providing range squad lethality and squad counter damage. Overall squad counter damage. So, depending on what you need the most, this is going to provide a benefit to all three, whereas this one only provides counter damage. But if you're a garrison main like myself, counter damage is beneficial because you're dealing counter damage to everybody that attacks you. So having an additional, boost to that counter damage is pretty nice. Okay. Lastly, we're going to look at the boots here for the regular legendary armaments. We've got combat boots providing squad basic attack damage and defense, and range squad defense. Or you've got the canvas boots providing basic attack damage and range squad attack. So again, depending on what you need, but as a range main, you're probably going to stack attack because it deals more damage. And that's ideally what you want to do. You're not there to sustain the fight for as long as possible. You're there to punch as hard as possible, right? But those are the 6 main ones. Now, when we look at the superbs, you're going to understand a little bit about them. First off, they're much more expensive to get. They take a long time to build up, right? But there's a reason for that. First off, they come standard with 3 stats, 3 basic attributes that you're getting. A lot of times these attributes are better in regards to, say, like squad HP or a reduction in skill damage. And since most of the damage in this game is done by the skills, this is a huge stat instead. And these also help you with your collaboration armaments. If, for example, I get the gun from the collaboration event now, once I get a copy of this one, I can use this one to upgrade that collaboration event or that collaboration armament. So I don't need multiple copies of the collaboration one in order to upgrade it. So there's benefits running those through. The other benefit is once we get to this 5th slot, once you awaken these to 5-star, which yes, takes a long time unless you pay for it, you get a rare hone, which will go through, and each one is a little bit different. Some provide rage, some provide additional damage, some provide additional defense, depending on what they do. So you also get this rare hone that you can get honed in as well. But let's take a look. So first off, we got the precision rifle bringing squad lethality, skill damage dealt, and squad attack. And this is overall squad attack and overall skill damage. Okay. This one here bringing the ranged shooter beret, bringing range squad block, range squad damage reduction, and squad defense, making you much tankier. And this damage reduction is a flat damage reduction, which is great. The special ghillie suit is bringing range squad block, skill damage taken by troops is reduced, and squad HP goes up. And since squad HP is so valuable, that's a huge one to get. The Hunter's Weapon Case providing squad counter damage, basic attack damage taken reduced, and ranged squad attack. The Tactical Pants providing ranged squad lethality, ranged squad damage, and squad attack. And the Boots providing squad's basic attack damage, reduction in counter damage taken, and then ranged squad attack as well. So having all of these is going to provide a great mix of squad basic attack damage, squad counter damage, skill damage, a reduction in skill damage taken, HP, all the stuff that you really kind of need, which is why superbs are often a lot better. These ones will allow you to get your characters, I believe, to 7.35 million is like the most with red hones. I could be incorrect on that, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But in total, that's all the armaments you have to choose from when it comes to ranged. Now, let's go through real quick the Pacific Rim ones. These are your collaboration ones for all of you ranged mains. There are, again, 6 of them. No devices, just the 6 mains. And there's 2 ways to get them. The first is right here through the Lucky Gotcha event. Okay? Through this event. So every 35 spins, you get another spin, which gives you a 6.5% chance to draw one of these armaments. So it's not very much, but it gives you the capability of actually getting them. Okay? And like I said, once you get them, you can sacrifice the related superb armament to upgrade them. But the Jaeger tactical rifle is providing squad block, a reduction in skill damage taken, and a reduction in AoE damage taken, which is great, especially when you consider that a lot of the main rally leads and things like that, and the main, even in the field, a lot of situation happens, a lot of damage happens with AoE, so a flat damage reduction at 2.2% starting is pretty nice. It's really going to hinder things like Bard, things like Lewis, right? All those ones with massive AoEs. That'll be a helpful one. The helmet is providing squad lethality, squad damage, and squad attack. Sorry, range squad lethality, range squad damage, and range squad attack. And this damage is flat damage, so it's flat damage multiplier at the end. Versus just like the damage reduction, where it's a flat damage reduction and not calculated within the calculation itself. And then the Jaeger backpack, bringing range squad lethality, squad's basic attack damage, and counter damage taken at 1.4. So, again, making you a lot tankier and hitting a lot harder as well. Now, these first three are only available within this gacha event, so you have to spend a lot. I've spent, I think, almost nothing in this event, and I've spun, I think, 4 or 5 times. I'm at a total of 156 spins. Or 156... Yeah, completed the gacha 156 times. And every 35 you get a spin. So what is that? Like 4 spins, 5 spins? And I haven't gotten anything. I've gotten 1 from here and 3 from here. So 4 spins. So. Now, that being said, the other opportunity that you have in order to get this is the underground market, where you have to buy these other ones. You've got the Jaeger tactical vest, providing range squad lethality, skill damage dealt, and squad capacity. So again, a huge one. More troops, more skill damage. You've got the Jaeger pants, providing squad block, range squad block, range squad damage reduced, and squad counter damage. And then you've got the boots, providing range squad block, squad HP, and basic attack damage taken is reduced. So again, 3 good options, and once you get these, you can upgrade them with other ones. So, if you're a ranged main, obviously you want to collect them if you can. If you're not a ranged main, I wouldn't worry about it. Don't be like me, though. I'm an infantry main, and I totally dropped the ball on Marco and Ares stuff. So I don't have any of the Marco and Ares equipment, and my Marco and Ares is weak, so it's going to be very expensive for me to fully level them up, which totally sucks. But that's my own doing. That's what I did. I did that to myself. So don't be like me. If you're a ranged main, go after your ranged heroes, because here's the thing. First off, the collaboration heroes are all better than the regular heroes that we have. Okay? The collaboration heroes are all very good for what they're exactly designed to do. Mai, even as a collaboration hero, is still really good. She's still better than a lot of the other heroes that we have. Same with Marco and Aerie, very supportive, very influential hero. And Jack Bronte is already showing to be very, very good at what he does as well. So the heroes themselves are quite efficient. We know this when it comes to the collaborations themselves. Okay? So the problem is those collaboration heroes take 2 times as many fragments to upgrade. So if you're going to go for them, obviously you also have to go for them during the events when you can get those fragments cheaper and get those armaments. Once the event is gone, the armaments are gone, and then it's twice as expensive to level them up. So do yourself a favor. If you're a ranged main, go for Jack Bronte, go for the armaments, and make sure that you at least acquire them. You can always level them up later, but make sure that you at least acquire them. That's kind of the important part. Okay? Now, last, let's talk about hones. We've gone through all the armaments that are currently available. Let's talk about hones. And let's talk about hones on ranged. Okay? So if we go manage and we click hone, we're going to look at these honed attributes. First and foremost, let's look at that rare. So the rare hone that you get at 5 stars on the boots is going to reduce, every 15 seconds, reduces the movement speed and defense of nearby enemies for enemies by 25% and 25% respectively. That's crazy. So you can start to see, well, having that's going to be much better than having these ones here. Okay? So once you get them unlocked, which does take time, you can start to see why they're more beneficial. Now, let's look at attack, defense, block, and lethality. What's the difference? Well, it works like this. If you have a higher lethality than they have block, you deal bonus damage. If they have higher lethality than you have block, they deal bonus damage. Right? So you really want to have a good mix of lethality and block so that not only are you dealing bonus damage, but you're not getting bonus damage dealt to you. So it's kind of a good way to match it that way. But the difference is those are only engaged when you're actively fighting someone head on. If you're running away, it's not the same, right? You're not engaged in battle. They're engaged with you. You're running away and only dealing counter damage. So it's not the same. Okay? So the question is attack and defense better than block and lethality? And the answer is no. They are both needed. Both sides are needed. Again, look at diminishing returns. If you already have, let's say for example, I've already got 600 block and I managed to pull a 65 on my ranged block. So it's 10 and a little bit percent, 10.1% or 10.09% of an upgrade to my block stack. And let's say I only have 10% rider squad or range squad defense. I'm only getting 10% range squad defense, but I managed to get a 5% range squad defense buff. So I'm increasing my range squad defense by 30% compared to increasing my block by only 10%. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a good balance that you need of both. Now, some things to remember. When honing, you can hone 2 of the same stat on one armament. Okay? So if I look at my Thunder and I look at the weapon that he's got here, I've got 2 infantry squad blocks on the same weapon. You can do 2 of the same one. Right? So you don't necessarily need to be like me and have rally and garrison on the same one because I'm an idiot and I haven't honed these out yet. You can put 2 hones of the same stat on each one. I can't hone another infantry squad block. I can only get 2. But like I said, this does mean that I don't actually have to put garrison on there. I don't have to put rally hones on there. Because here's the thing, those hones are only specific to when they're being used. What that means is, if I look here at my helmet, which has garrison counter damage, if I put Thunder in the field, he's not getting this additional 4% counter damage. That's only triggered when he's in garrison. Same with here, with a Dutt's gun. If I put a Dutt in the field, she's not getting any benefits from any of these stats fighting. The only place that she gets benefits is if she's in a rally, if she's running a rally, or running a garrison. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have to have these, and in fact, these are the next ones I'm going to hone out on her, because there's no need for them there. But it's the same depending on what you need. So the question is it attack or defense or block or lethality? The truth is you need a good mix of everything. The ones that you don't need though, which we can absolutely talk about, the ones that we don't need to worry about are going to be things like rally or garrison basic attack damage. Instead, focus on counter damage or overall attack. Okay? Don't worry about rally skill damage. Instead, focus on counter damage and attack. Okay? For your rally or garrison, if you're doing specific. And here's my best advice. Or here's some, not my best, but good advice. Don't focus on these overall stat ones, unless you're doing multi-troop garrisons or multi-troop lines. Because yes, you're getting overall squad attack at 4.5%, but it's less than the 5% you get for the specific one. And if what we're trying to be is as efficient as possible, as effective as possible, how often are you actually running multiple troop lines? So unless you're preparing a garrison for a multiple troop line or anything like that, ideally you're going to focus on these ones instead, the focused hones instead. They give you a better percentage. Same with squad block. They only give you up to 60, whereas here squad block gives you up to 65. Okay? Now, the gathering speed ones, you're only going to put on your gathering speed heroes, which we'll talk about in our own video. You don't ever have to worry about damage dealt to zombies or zombie kill experience. Squad load is also only going to go on your gathering heroes. And squad travel speed, in my opinion, is entirely up to you. Whether you need it or not, I much prefer to have the either attack or defensive stats than I would to have the travel speed. Just because there's a lot of other places to acquire travel speed as you get stronger. Sacrificing in here might not necessarily be the best way. But that's just me. If you find that what you want to do is create a line specific to hunting farms, that's totally acceptable as well. Okay? But this is basically what it comes down to, folks, and that is really it. Armaments are pretty simple. 6 per, 2 devices, and the entire concept is the same. Only put them on your leaders. You do not lead them on co-leaders. You do not need them on anybody else. Only put them on the leaders of your marches. Not just the leader heroes, pardon me. The leaders of your marches. They're the only ones who need armaments, okay? But that's it, folks, for the first video going into the ranged armaments currently available in Doomsday Last Survivor. If you need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to the comment section. Find me in game. Reach out to my inbox there. I'm always looking to help. Okay? If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the channel with your friends. Join to become a member. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.